So Aftermath Silver, it's an exciting exploration company with their flagship asset in southern Peru. And with that, Mike here will introduce Aftermath Silver.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Williams. I'm the founder and executive chair of Aftermath Silver. When I originally put this company together, it was going to be a silver dominant company that we focused on open pit opportunities. This is probably a refrain you're going to hear a lot, but Eric Sprott's also our key shareholder, and Eric went from 14% in September to 19.9%, and now he's 25%, so we're his third largest holding. But originally it was predicated on silver, but his last 10 million that he put in to go to 25 was because of a metal that we have in our large deposit, Berenguela, called manganese. And there's a lot of the manganese globally, but there's very little manganese that can become high purity, which is used in the EV batteries, and I'll get into that in 1 second. I put this slide up because we're going back 5,000 years when metals were vital in Mesopotamia and through future civilizations, but I will make this comment: they are going to be more important in the future. There is no electrification without copper. There is no EV revolution without manganese. There is no high tech without silver. And one of the other reasons that I really like silver, 55% is now used in the high tech industry. So it has an industrial use. A lot of that's through solar panels. You need silver. It's the most conductive metal on the planet, and it has the second most uses after petroleum. So you get the monetary side and you get the industrial side. Our chief project, which I'm just going to touch on for brevity, is Barangila. It's located in southern Peru. Currently, we have 140 million ounces of silver, and we have 55 million tons of copper at 0.7, and we have 55 million tons of manganese at 7%. And it's an oxide deposit. To be high purity manganese, it has to be acid soluble, which means oxide or carbonate. So the steel industry manganese, which is hosted in silica, doesn't work in the car batteries. This is our share performance, and we've basically doubled in the last year, same with our capitalization. That's largely been predicated on, Eric is a good vote of confidence, but we also did 82 drill holes last year, and I think we hit on 90% of them. I'll touch on several in a second. We trade about 1 million shares a day on the TSX Venture. We also trade on OTCQX, and we are also looking at listing on the New York Stock Exchange post our economic reports. We currently have 14 million in the treasury. I'll just touch quickly on the team. Myself, 30 years in the capital markets. Everyone on our team's been involved in various M&A activity. We've also sold companies. We've raised about $1 billion over the last 15 years. Ralph Rushton, 11 years with Anglo as a geo CEO. Spent another 15 years in the junior sector, Vancouver, last 5 with myself. Michael Parker's a geologist, runs our technical program in Peru. Michael's married to a Peruvian, ran Peru for First Quantum. He was the country manager, so a very capable individual. In Peru, it's all about social license. Chile's about water. If you don't have the local people working with you and on side, it becomes very difficult. If someone stands up in front of you and says, hey, we don't have permitting issues, I think in the mining industry, we all have permitting issues. It's how we handle them. And the best way of handling permitting issues when the NGOs go after you, and they always do, because that's their raison d'etre, is to stop mining. Ours is to mine. You have to have the local people on side. And that's their kryptonite. And Victor Grande, former World Bank Development Officer, he's a local Quechua-speaking Peruvian. He's very good locally, but also has spent a lot of time Washington, D.C., Lima, in the capitals. So in the last year, our share price has gone up to 175%. Market cap's increased 200%. We mentioned we've done 82 diamond drill holes. One of those holes, as we moved east on the project, it's a carbonate replacement deposit, and I'll describe it like this. It's like a giant sugar cube with carbonate rocks, limestones, and if you can imagine pouring coffee on a sugar cube, the sugar dissolves and the coffee takes the place of the sugar. Same thing happens in a carbonate deposit. Fluids come from a source. In this case, it looks like a copper porphyry. But as we've moved out east, we put out a hole, was 153 meters of 1.12% copper, 7% manganese, and 290 grams of silver. That's the equivalent to 5% silver, and it was right from surface. Barangila comes to surface, life of mine strip, we anticipate is going to be 1-to-1, which is about the best in the industry. First 3 to 4 years, 0.3, 0.4 to 1. But what we're seeing in that hole, we're also seeing intrusive material, which comes from a source like a porphyry as well as carbonate. So it's got the geologists excited. We will be following that up. I mentioned manganese. The thing with manganese for high purity batteries, they have to be at 99.9% pure. And our initial metallurgies come back and demonstrated that. Now we scale it up. I mentioned Eric Sprott. We've been added to one of the silver index funds. I expect will be added to several more. So this is referring to Berenguela now. Significant silver, 140 million ounces contained in a pit shell. There's an additional 40 million that we haven't included in the mine plan, but we could. We think we're about a 15-year mine plan, so we could extend that out to 20 if we wanted to. Preliminary economic assessment, we were planning on doing one this year. We might skip it and go straight to pre-feasibility. All our drilling's done to pre-feasibility level, and so is our metallurgy. So rather than put out a PEA in, say, November, we could put out a pre-feasibility study Q2 of next year. That's what we're working towards. We'll have an announcement shortly which direction we're going to go. If we go PEA, we'll have a PFS out in 2026, then the feasibility in 2027. So in our industry, especially critical metals, metals like manganese, there's a definite bifurcation. You either are going to refine in the United States, and they are going to give you very generous grants like they did to Element 25, an Australian company. They are going to direct ship their manganese from Perth to Louisiana, and the reason they're going to do that, there's 289 million reasons why they're going to do it. They got the grant from the Louisiana government and the federal government. I expect we'll be contacted by the US Department of Energy within the next 6 to 12 months. Our manganese deposit looks like it's going to be the biggest in the world. So anytime you're the biggest of something is a good thing, unless it's debt. But in our case, it's a metal that every new battery chemistry has in it. If you look at every chemistry from the solid state to sodium, they all have M's in the manganese. Aggregate silver is over 200 million ounces if you add them up in all three of our deposits. That doesn't include the additional 40 million that we have at Barangila. I'm not going to stay on this slide. I'm sure you've heard about this all day. I've touched on 55% industrial. But the thing with silver is, from a company point of view, it's very hard to make a silver mine economic. 75% of silver comes from byproduct. Either comes from copper mines or lead zinc. So when you have a good silver project, we tend to hit above our weight class. I would say there's probably globally 200, 250 good gold projects that you would be worth your time looking at. There's probably only 25 good silver projects. So when you do have one, it gets a lot of attention. And I always make this comment, in a bull market, when gold runs, silver gallops. It's the leverage. And from my point of view, the odds of silver going to 75, Eric thinks that silver is going to be 50 by the end of the year and 150, 200 within 24, 36 months. The odds of silver doubling, I think, are reasonable. The odds of gold doubling, something bad's probably happened, which we don't want. But a lot of water has to go under the bridge for gold to double. I don't think that's the case for silver. The silver-gold ratio right now is 100 to 1. In my opinion, that's too high. Copper, I'm not going to stay on this slide very long, other than to say the CEO of BHP said the other day, we need to spend $250 billion in the next 10 years in order to meet the net zero guidelines by 2040, 2050. That will not happen. The problem in the industry is there's 226 discoveries since 1990, only 10 in the last 10 years. So we've got demand going through the roof, and we've got supply dwindling, and head grades worldwide are dropping. This is the manganese. So what the manganese does, it's the stabilizing component in the cathode portion of the battery. And in some of the battery chemistries, it's up to 61% of the cathode is manganese. So it replaces cobalt. And it's slightly higher density, so it gets more energy than cobalt, and it's a little bit lighter, which they always look for in the battery industry. But the real key thing is cobalt trades for $10,000 a ton, manganese is $2,500. The secondary reason is manganese will come from countries like us in Peru and Australia. A lot of the cobalt comes out of the Congo, which is anathema to the people that would lend the money to build projects like this. 704% increase is slated for manganese demand into 2040. This is our Barangila project. I've got 3.5 minutes. I'll take you through really quickly. So it's large scale copper, manganese, and silver. It's oxide. It has strategic importance. The initial metallurgy shows that we've gotten to that magic 99.9% level. The deposit begins right at surface, so it's open pittable. When I did the due diligence on this company, what I looked for was what happens if silver drops below 20, will it still work? And because it's an open pittable, the answer back then was yes. So the rest is upside. These are great silver prices for us, but I do expect them to go up. It has rail power, all within 6 kilometers, labor, and there's potential for a skarn discovery and a porphyry discovery, as I mentioned. The resource, I've touched on it, 140 million ounces, 101 are in our measured and indicated category, 38 inferred, 55 million tons, 0.7 copper, and 55 million tons of 7%. That resource will be updated in about 60 days. It'll incorporate another 142 holes. So there is some news coming. Within 2 weeks, you'll also see 12 assay results, and then in about another 3 weeks, you'll see a further 12 assay results. This slide is if we were just silver, we're probably 5th, 6th largest undeveloped silver asset in the world. That's just showing our 140 million ounces at Berenguela. I'm not including the non-constrained, would be a little bit higher. This slide, you're supposed to, when you do these converting to show the equivalent, use the dominant metal. Because manganese pricing has gone through the roof, manganese has now become the dominant metal in value-wise, but I've actually reversed engineered it. I've done it as a silver equivalent. And as of today, at $33 silver and $2,500 manganese, it's roughly the equivalent of an 850 million ounce silver deposit at 842 grams per ton. So it's big and it's rich. This is where we're located. The red line is actually a rail. We've got that lake close by, but we think we'll be processing down on the coast rather than at elevation. We're at 4,200 meters. That is high. It's higher than any mountain in Europe, but it's on a plateau. You can see it's rolling. There's 6 kilometers from the town and 5 kilometers from rail. We just build a spur in. That black rock you see is mineralization. Historically, maybe 2% of this deposit was mined from surface. That's the Los Bombos train that go MMG's deposit. That's something similar that we would use. It's an undercapacity rail line. That's the road going right by the deposit. We've done 43 kilometers of drilling ourselves and the people that had it before. We really don't need to drill anymore. We've got enough, we think, to be a mine. That's the core. That's the green is the copper, the waste rock, which we think we can remove. The black is the manganese and the silver. The cross-section comes right to surface. The red is high grade, blue is medium grade. I couldn't have dug out a better hole to put the mineralization in for an open pit. It works exceedingly well. First 3 to 4 years, 0.3, 0.4 to 1. Over to the right is where we hit on our copper zones. That's that 150 meters of 5% copper equivalent. We'll follow that up later this year. Lower left corner, we're seeing 2% skarn mineralization at surface for 2 kilometers. That'll be drill tested next year. We are going, the path we're on is to provide MsNO4, manganese sulfate, high purity for the car industry. That's what it looks like. Very simple process. You take the acid, crush the rock, make a solution, use a process called Merrill-Crowe. It produces doré, silver bars. Then you electrowin it to SXEW copper cathode, and then finally take out your impurities, and then you produce that product in the far right. Our ESG is on track. We don't have any issues. 19 surface landholders. We have agreements with them all. We're going to extend those out. So next 12 months, I'll just close with that. Expect assay results. They'll be out shortly. Updated 43-101. We'll drill test those, follow up on those high-grade copper, silver intersects, additional met work, and then we'll probably be going to pre-feasibility study. And then if the market continues to go up for silver, we will also drill our project in Chile at the same time. Thank you.